tattoos. We don't have people like that around here. Here's a video.
I'm just trying to go to Planet Fitness, man.
What?
I'm just trying to go to Planet Fitness.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. You're a little ways away from Planet Fitness.
I know.
What's your name?
My name is Jason.
Jason?
Yeah.
Jason, do you mind just putting that, because I don't know what's in your hand right now.
Look, it's my t-shirt and my hat. You probably see me take it off right now.
Okay. Jason, are you on parole or probation?
No, nothing.
No, have you been arrested or anything like that?
I've been arrested before, but that's years ago. It has nothing to do with my life now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you living at?
Where am I living? I'm from Phoenix. I'm here as an actor.
An actor?
Yes.
Have you been in anything I would have seen?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know. I've auditioned for many things that I know you've seen, but I signed NDAs and I'm not allowed to talk about these things.
Talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything legal on you or anything
Nope.
like that? No, is it okay if we make sure?
There's no reason to search me.
But is it okay if we make sure?
There's no reason to search
So
me.
you're saying no?
I don't know. Is it against the law to say no? Because I'd rather
It's
you
not
don't.
against the law.
Now I'm saying no then. There's no. But the whole reason is, what provoked you to stop me and just question me?
I told you before. I'm not going to sit here and say it again and again.
I'm just curious.
Okay?
Because like I said, I'm starting to feel like I'm being harassed by the Burbank police.
I get it. I'm sorry.
And I'm not doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, normally it's not every day that people walk down the street, they got full tattoo sleeves and everything. You know?
So is my tattoos.
This officer said it's not every day someone walks down the street with tattoos. Oh, madam, you know it wasn't the tattoo that set you and your partner off to engage in this way. Let's put his picture up. In Burbank, an actor walking to Planet Fitness was stopped by the police because he had tattoos. The man that they profiled is actor, producer, and musician Lazy Dub. Lazy Dub wanted to make it clear this was not a skit. This was not some type of joke. This was authentic and it happened to him. So at this point, Burbank, you got some questions that need answers. Do your officers know what civil violation is? Do they understand the concept of the Constitution? Probable cause, civil rights. Because what I just saw was a violation to the extreme. AB, as a law student, you saw multiple violations there, I know.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely did. And so the only thing I'm gonna say is at this point, just stop talking to the police unless you got an attorney. Because, I mean, that's all we can do at this point because they clearly don't know the law and it's not your job to teach it to them. Leave them alone because this is getting ridiculous.
Just insane. Yeah, so sad that happened to him. Glad he did record it. So now, possibly, policies can change, education can happen, sensitivities can be noted, all right? AB, always good to have you on the program. Tell people they can follow you, check out your great work.
Definitely, you can follow me at I Am Legally Hype. I am on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you so much for having me once again, Dr. Richie.
Always a pleasure, my dear sister. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Hello and welcome to Unbossed. We are so glad that you are here, and joining me today in the co-chair spot is none other than Jackson White, a contributor for Rebel HQ. Jackson, how are you on this fine day?
I'm 31 years old, freshly a day. I got there yesterday, you know what I mean? So that's pretty nice. It's good to still be here. Other than that, I no complaints. I'm feeling all right. I'm ready to go. Good to be here with you like always.
Well, beautiful, and happy birthday, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
So, twice in the show we read your comments, so I'm hoping that some viewers will wish you a very, very happy birthday.
Hopefully so. 31 on the 31st, so, I guess you can send me mean comments if you want to, but please, you don't have
to. No mean comments, none at all. So Jackson and I will be discussing today. Well, obviously it's the first day of February. We all know what that means. It is Black History Month. So we're gonna talk a little bit about its origins. And the Florida College Board unfortunately gave in to Ron DeSantis, his white supremacist ideology. Yeah, they did. And later in the show, we're gonna talk about how President Trump pleaded the fifth more than 400 times. Now we do understand it is one's right to plead the fifth, but 400 times, that might be a record. So Black History Month, we know that Black history is America's history. Although sometimes in this country it's not treated that way. Looking at you, Florida, and all the other states that plan to follow the warped line of thinking of desanctimonious. But let me get back. This country would not be the hegemonic nation that it is without the contribution, sometimes by force, of Africans and then their African-American descendants. The vibrancy of this nation, the vitality of this nation wouldn't be quite the same without us. And in an opinion piece for Yes Magazine, Lonnie G. Bunch III, the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian, gives an overview in an op-ed piece about the genesis of Black History Month and why it still matters. And he really made some strong points that I agree with. So let's go ahead and walk down memory lane with Secretary Bunch III, shall we? Yeah, we shall. So no one has played a greater role in helping all Americans know the Black past than Carter G. Woodson, and that's Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the individual who created Negro History Week in Washington, D.C. in February of 1926. Bunch goes on to say that Woodson was the second Black American to receive a PhD in history from Harvard, following the one and only Dr. W.B. Du Bois by a few years. To Woodson, the Black experience was too important simply to be left to a small group of academics. Woodson believed that his role was to use Black history and culture as a weapon in the struggle for racial uplift. You better say that. His impatience. So Dr. Carter G. Woodson was impatient with the pace by which these kinds of the teaching of Black history was going, and it was his impatience that led him to create Negro History Week in 1926 to ensure that school children, God forbid the sanctimonious was around, school children would be exposed to Black history. Woodson chose the second week of February to celebrate Black history because of the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And Jackson, I kind of want to pause right there and bring you in because there's an inside joke, as you probably know, in the Black community about why February is one of the coldest months of the year, especially if you live in the northern parts of this nation. It's the shortest month of the year. And so constantly I would hear the jokes of why was it February? And that there was some kind of conspiracy to pick February. But as we know, many of us knew this, but for some who never knew this, it is because Dr. Carter G. Woodson admired both the abolitionist Frederick Douglass and a former president Abraham Lincoln so much, and both of their birthdays are in February. That is the reason why he picked February.
Well, I guess we get a leap year sometimes, so a little, we get a little sprinkle on top, hit the piñata every once in a while, every 4 years. But I think one of the biggest things about Black history is how without it there would be no America. And oftentimes, if not all the time, the legend and the mythology of America is that this is a place, let alone all the people who were here before, but just how it was built through grit and entrepreneurship. But those early entrepreneurs were slave masters. Land was taken, speculated upon, just like it is with the stock market these days. You can grow this there, you can grow that there. And really the glue that held the United States together was slavery. A lot of what kept it going on for so long is because it was so important politically that the thought of getting rid of it just was complete political suicide. Slaves were marched around even after the Atlantic slave trade was ended. Slaves were marched like cattle to and from, ripped from their families. And really, it was just automation, basically. They didn't have to pay people. That's why their profits were so high. But outside of that, the inventions, the inclusion, and all the different industries, just how Black history is American history. I mean, and then you said, well, thank God Ron DeSanctimonious or DeSatan or whatever it is, whatever you want to call him. Thank God he isn't around. But at the same time, it's like, what picture are we painting now? We don't have to talk about critical race theory, even though we kind of really don't in school. But the Black history is American history, and there's no erasing it.
That's exactly right. Cannot erase it. And there is a book that I would definitely love to recommend to our viewers, and it's called They Came Before Columbus. A lot of times in the study of our history, as you know, Jackson, people always start at chattel slavery. It left a horrible imprint, no doubt, on this nation. And that was the beginning in terms of the formation of this nation. That there is no way around talking about the enslavement of our ancestors and then their progeny. There's a whole lot of Black history when we talk about the Black diaspora and all of the Black people in various parts of this globe, the exploration of Black people, throughout this world, even before they came before Columbus really lays that out so well. The different kingdoms on the continent of Africa to the origins from the western coast of Africa, where most African Americans' ancestors come from. So it is a lot. And when I taught African American history, I made sure that I started on, in Africa, on the west coast of Africa, and worked my way to the Americas, because there's more than one America. But when we think about the United States of America, and Jackson, you made such an important point that slavery, the enslavement of Black people, of Africans and then their ancestors, was so important to the people, to the Europeans, the Anglo-Saxons that formed this nation, that even as they fought for their own freedom from the British crown, they had the opportunity to let freedom ring in a deep, beautiful way. And they decided not to. They decided to keep our ancestors enslaved, even as they fought for their own freedom against the British crown. The irony there is not lost on us. And even when slavery was abolished by the 13th Amendment, which you call the Civil War amendments, even still, there is a clause in there that we debate right now. The 13th was a good documentary that people should watch that talks about how even in that, slavery, a type of slavery, is still very much alive and well in this country, and it's called the industrial prison complex. But just in the fact that Black people were set free, so to speak, by the 13th Amendment, and then the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendments of the Constitution, equal protection under the law, and then the 15th Amendment giving Black men the right to vote. And we still needed the Civil Rights. We still need the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act even after all of that. So the history is vast, and just the music and the culture and the arts and all of that, because it is about pain, but it is also about enlivenment and vibrancy that Black people brought. The whole notion of the blues, which is the combination of African and American history. We wouldn't know the blues, we wouldn't know jazz, any of that. None of that would have been born without those whose skin have been kissed by the sun, as Zora Neale Hurston lays out, the great writer. So it is vast. And just big ups to Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who started the week. That week turned into a month. I believe that was in the 70s when it became Black History Month, but he had a vision to do that. And it is important, as going back to what Secretary Bunch III had to say, it is important to realize that Negro History Week was not born in a vacuum. The 1920s saw the rise in interest in African American culture that was represented by the Harlem Renaissance. Renaissance, as we know, means rebirth. I kind of, as a historian I'm not so sure I would have used the word renaissance, because rebirth means that there was something there all along. We had to really create that thing right here in the United States of America. The cultural interpreters that Bunch lays out in his op-ed, he says they wrote about the joys and the sorrows of Blackness, that they captured the new rhythms of the cities, created in part by the thousands of Black Southerners who migrated to urban centers like Chicago, like Cleveland, don't leave out Cleveland. And they created images that celebrated Blackness and provided more positive images of the African American experience. And then he goes on to list some of those folks, and this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. We got the one and only Langston Hughes, we have Georgia Douglas Johnson, Claude McKay, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Jimmy Lansford, Aaron Douglas, Richmond Berth, and Lois Jones, just to name a few. And you know, Jackson, I really love how he points to, yes, the pleasure and the pain, the beauty of what it means to be Black in America, and how we had writers and artists, both visual artists, spoken word artists, just really lay into really elevating what Black history really does mean. And for us to be able to tell it through our voice. That is really what the Harlem Renaissance was about. No longer were other people telling our stories. We had the opportunity to tell them for ourselves.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that, well, it's good that we have a month, but I think that, moving forward, especially living in the times that we do, where we have access to so much content, there's going to be a lot more opportunity to just educate people on the Black experience of all kinds, upper class, lower class, back in the day, where the Black community is going, interracial relationships, all types of things, realities that happen in and out of the Black community. And also, again, just really painting that picture that this whole country has always and still continues to depend on Black people very thoroughly.
There it is, that part right there. And that Black history is, in fact, America's history. Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, he wraps his op-ed up with just a personal touch as he reflects on why it is important to continue to study and recognize Black History Month. And he said the following: rather, I see the African American past in the way my daughters laugh reminds me of my grandmother. I experience the African American past when I think of my grandfather choosing to leave the South rather than continue to experience sharecropping and segregation, or when I remember sitting in the backyard listening to old men tell stories. It just brings a smile to my face. Further, he goes on, ultimately, African American history and its celebration throughout February is just as vibrant today as it was when Woodson created it 94 years ago. That's because it helps us to remember there is no more powerful force than a people steeped in their history. And there is no more higher cause than honoring our struggle and ancestors by remembering. You better go ahead and say that. Amen, Secretary Bunch III. You did that. We remember the history of our ancestors because we must understand the past, and we must understand, in the words of James Baldwin, from whence we came. We remember it for ourselves because we use it to strengthen and undergird this journey called life that we are all experiencing in this moment, and we need to wrap and understand it for future generations yet unborn. Wishing each and every Black person, every person whose skin has been kissed by the sun, a very happy African American or Black History Month indeed. Oh my God, Jackson, I'm telling you, I can just talk about this. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm back in my college classroom right now.
Right, exactly. I'm ready to just not say nothing and just let you take over the whole episode. We can just talk about history and facts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
definitely. Absolutely.
Oh my God, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, even with the pain that we have endured as a people and that we continue to endure today, it is a beautiful thing. I mean, to say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, and to recognize the beauty and the magnificence of Blackness is indeed a beautiful thing. And you're right, Jackson, we can do it 365. Yeah, we can. And we should. All right, on to something that is the total opposite of what Jackson and I were just talking about. Remember what Governor Ron DeSantis said about the standards of Black history? I want to help you refresh your memory, just in case you forgot.
And we want to do history. And that's what our standards for Black history are. It's just cut and dried history. You learn all the basics, you learn about the great figures. And, I view it as American history. I don't view it as separate history. We have history, a lot of different shapes and sizes. People that have participated to make the country great, people that have stood up when it wasn't easy, and they all deserve to be taught. But abolishing prisons, being taught to high school kids as if that's somehow a fact, no, that's not appropriate.
Lord have mercy on my Black soul. First of all, this man is not qualified to talk about what should be taught or not taught in a classroom. He said it's cut and dry, it's basic. Further lets me know that this man just wants to continue to control. He wants to be in total control. I'm sure there are other things that this governor could be doing with his time, but attacking Black studies, that's what he has decided to do. I'm sure many of you are old enough to remember when he shipped migrants off to Martha's Vineyard, wasting millions of taxpayers' dollars. But I digressed just a little bit. This man is not qualified to do what he did, and really having the Florida College Board cave to him is quite disappointing. So, as a reminder, here's what the course would have taught. And we're talking about African American studies, which covers a broad swath of the African American experience, history and all. But let's put this up. AP African American Studies course would have covered the origins of the African diaspora, freedom, enslavement, and resistance, the practice of freedom, movements, and debates. This reporting is coming from NBC News. I also want to remind our viewers today that AP course was an elective. So we all know what an elective is, don't we? Maybe Governor DeSantis does not know what a damn elective is. It means students can elect to take the course or not take the course. Their parents can say, I don't want my child to take the course, and they did not have to take the course. Let me also remind you that the components of that course was leaked. It had not been made public prior to this governor deciding that it was just that important to call a press conference to talk about how it is so inappropriate. And why shouldn't we have conversations about how we should abolish the private prison industry, Governor DeSantis? Is it because maybe those are some of your owner donors? I do not believe that private prisons should exist and that people should be making money off of other people's miseries. Why not have those kinds of conversations in this elective course? But Ron said that, this history wasn't important. And now after that, after the criticism, after he abused his power, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what this governor did. Take a look at this headline. The College Board strips down its AP curriculum for African American studies. That's right. After heavy criticism from Governor Ron DeSantis, the College Board released on Wednesday an official curriculum for its new advanced placement course in African American studies, stripped of much of the subject matter that had angered the governor and other conservatives. So let me get this right. This angry governor, his angry white man, gets to decide what is taught, and a few conservatives. And so other people's voices and how they feel about it doesn't matter because he mad, he big mad. So he has a press conference and then this College Board backs down. The College Board purged the names of many Black writers and scholars associated with critical race theory, which by the way is not taught in K through 12, the queer experience and Black feminism. It ushered these people, it ushered out some politically fraught topics like Black Lives Matter from the formal curriculum, and it added some new Black conservatism. It's now offered as an idea for a research project. And you know what, Jackson? I have no problem with that. I have no problem with them teaching Black conservatism. Please do that, along with teaching the other aspects of the African American experience in African American studies. Jackson, your take on this?
Well, the only thing basic and boring in this situation is Ron DeSantis's mindset and how he sees the world. Pretty much anything that involves exiting the box of there's nothing to see here makes people like Ron DeSantis very uncomfortable. Because, for him to say, and it's not just him, but abolition is a very vague word. It really is. So when he put that forth, or when anyone in his position does, we're talking about abolition. We're not talking about totally eliminating all prisons completely and altogether. That's actually a rather extreme stance.
That's right.
Because people understand that there are people in society that are very dangerous and just can't function. So they'll move it all the way over there, that's really the discussion anyone's talking about, to overcloud the fact that people just may have an interest in history and may want to teach it, may want to do archaeological studies, something along those lines that African American studies could absolutely assist in if you were to take it. So he says that as if, like you said, he's unqualified, but he clearly doesn't know Black history, because if he did, he wouldn't have just been like, oh, well, I look at it like it's all the same.
Yeah,
sure you
just
do.
basic stuff. The man said African American history is basic.
Right.
Oh, so now the attack on the AP courses is just the beginning of a larger, broader agenda. It was a prelude to that larger agenda. Take a look.
We are also going to eliminate all DEI and CRT bureaucracies in the state of Florida. No funding, and that will wither on the vine. And I think that that's very important because it really serves as an ideological filter, a political filter. You've seen different things. New College has really embraced that, and that's part of the reason I think it hasn't been successful.
Once again, does he want to be the governor or does he want to be a chancellor? Does he want to be the governor? Does he want to be the president of a school board? He needs to make up his mind. Florida, get your governor. He is really doing a disservice to you, because I'm sure that there are some small businesses that could use some assistance. I'm sure that there are poor people in that state that could use some assistance. I am sure that there are other things that this governor could be doing instead of making a mockery of education. The man is not qualified in this arena. And the more he continues to use this as a tack to separate people, very hurtful, harmful. The man is dangerous, flat out dangerous. So in a press release about the announced legislation, because now he's going after the colleges. This is it, colleges and universities. In a press release about the announced legislation, the governor's office called diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, quote, discriminatory, what in the hell? And vowed to prohibit universities from funding them, even if the source of money isn't coming from the state. So federal government, hello somebody, y'all need to jump in here on this. This reminds me, Jackson, eerily reminds me of the whole states' right tack. That's what he is using. He reminds me of Governor Faubus, any of the other racist governors of the South that stood in the way of Black progress. He is indeed the 21st century version of this, Jackson. This man is, he has allowed this to consume his every move.
And one thing I've also pointed out is I haven't seen enough yet from him to think he's going to do well in the presidential run.
I hope not.
He's stiff and he's corny and he's lame, and that matters. But all that aside, it's just like, okay, you take out African American studies, key elements of it that make you uncomfortable, but what you're left with is American exceptionalism.
Come on.
Because that's the only other direction they point in. It's like they pick apart anything that could be of a little critique. And so for instance, learning about American slavery teaches you about the system of slavery itself, how it's worked everywhere, how it hasn't worked in different places, the things people are willing to do with one another, people who fought against it the whole time. There are people who fought against it the whole time. So it's very complicated. And then, so Ron DeSantis, people like him, they'll paint it like, slavery was just this thing in the South that some people did, but the whole country depended on it. The North gave loans for slaves. People took out loans for slaves all the time. The factories made this, so the whole system depended on it. And yes, we're far removed from it, And so if we learn about it, people don't even necessarily approach it with like, you learn about it and then you understand what we're in and then we can make the country a better place. But they're not concerned about that.
No, he's not concerned at all. This really is a national embarrassment, and the Fed should step in, especially when he's talking about stop halting funds. So it's do as I say do. What, I thought this was the party of freedom, right? They always talking about freedom and how the liberals, and let me just say there's a difference between liberals and freedom fighting progressives, but I digress. But always talking about freedom, 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 but yet you want to take away the freedom of educators to educate in a very robust way and explain history. You know, when I was coming through school, they didn't talk a whole lot about Black history at all. You know what we learned about? It was all about the presidents and the wars. Well, guess who all the presidents were up until that point? White men and war, that canon. You know, so what this man is doing, he's trying to dummy down. He does not want students to have a robust academic experience. So in high school and also in colleges and universities, as we can see, they can teach as long as they teach what he deems appropriate to teach. Florida, this man is dangerous. America, this man is dangerous, and he's playing from a playbook that has been cemented over and over again in this country. What he is doing is not new, it's been done time and time again, but for shame that we're in the 21st century fighting against a man that is abusing his power and trying to erase the history of this country. We'll be back after this.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own Black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that Black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger Black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to the show, my favorite part, and this gets me all settled. Before we read viewer comments, I want you to listen to some announcements. You know we need you to spin that wheel and become a member of TYT. You know you want to do that. You can get an email and everything. And once you get that email confirmation, you can spin the wheel. So become an annual TYT member at tyt.com/spin. Land on a prize and wait for your delivery via email. Share this information with a friend or frenemy. And on Friday, David Sirota joins Cenk Uygur on The Conversation. This is the one and only only David Sirota. Now, David Sirota is one of my friends. You look at that model picture. He's sitting up here leaning like that, all smooth and suave like that. Tune in at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 2:30 Pacific Time on tyt.com/live. This is something that you do not want to miss. And the watch list, tune in to the watch list with J.R. Jackson at a new time starting Monday, February the 6th. They'll be live weekdays at 5 p.m. ET or 2 p.m. PT. And JR shares his takes on the stories you should be paying attention to in the news, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. So subscribe to the show at youtube.com/watchlist. TYT. All right, here we go, Jackson, to my ultimate favorite part of the show. We're gonna start off with our TYT members, Nurse. Hey, Nurse, love that handle, baby. Happy birthday, Jackson. You do an awesome job on TYT. Yes, you do.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to a lot more.
Yeah, amen to that. And on Twitch, Drangar Dragon. Time for the Black Pearl Dragon to breathe some fire. I know that's right. Loving that. And on YouTube, Super Chat, Wild Lights. Happy birthday, Jackson. Bright blessings and best wishes. And may your 31st trip around the sun be your best yet. That is so sweet.
Yes, it is. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's definitely good to still be here, and I'm ready to keep on going.
Amen to that. And Robin, hey Robin, I love watching Unbossed, keeping us so informed with the real news. Go, Senator Nina. Thank you, Robin, so much. And many thanks to each and every one of you whose comments we had a chance to highlight on the show today. We would not be able to do what we do without you. So thank you for your support of our show and of the TYT network. Massachusetts Democrats truly have me saying, WTF, neoliberal.
We will now kneel.
Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Let's go straight to this headline. Mass prisoners could choose between freedom and their organs. Not making this up. Yep, you heard me right. And if you are viewing us right now, you're reading this right. And that's coming from Matthew Cunningham Cook. The new bill by Massachusetts Democrats would allow prisoners to get time off if they're off of their sentence if they donate their organs or bone marrow. Massachusetts, really? And the Massachusetts bill has two sponsors, Democratic reps Gonzalez and Garcia. Yep, Democrats, you heard me right. And we'll put up their smug shots. There they go, right there. So let's break this thing down. The legislation has attracted 5 co-sponsors in the State House. It raises major bioethical concerns for the over 6,000 plus people currently held in the Bay State's prisons. In essence, the bill would ask prisoners which is more important to them, their freedom or their organs and bone marrow. Gotta thank the lover for this reporting. The key phrase here, major bioethical concerns. And here's what the bill states. The bone marrow and organ donation program shall allow eligible incarcerated individuals to gain not less than 60 and not more than 365 days reduction in the length of their commuted sentence in prison or the condition that the incarcerated individual has donated bone marrow or organs. This is HD 3822. And there really are so many issues with this. First, as ABC News notes, prisoners have a much higher incidence of HIV, AIDS, hepatitis, and even tuberculosis than the general population. So it might be safe, might not be safe to use their organs in transplant procedures, geniuses. And second, people might be desperate in prison. They are in a compromised position and they just might do it. Jackson, I just can't believe, first of all, just pointing out the Democrats did this, but it wouldn't matter if it was Democrats or Republicans, but Democrats did this. Hence the WTF neoliberal. Your thoughts?
This, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but this has like the same tint as like kind of corny super villain. You know what I mean? Like in like Operation type of stuff. Like it kind of has that like same like tint to it. But I mean, really, this is just really it's both immoral and unethical because all you're doing is taking advantage of people who have no leverage. That's literally right. All it is. It's not more complicated than that. Like these people are being put in a situation where they probably wouldn't even consider this, or maybe wouldn't consider this otherwise. So it's pretty gross. Like it really is sick. And again, like it has that supervillain tint to it because it's really that gross.
Yeah, it really is. And again, sometimes I question what century we are in, but this is the 21st century in America, in the great state of Massachusetts. You got 2 Democratic lawmakers proposing a bill like this. I hope this bill is stopped because it is. Jackson said it all. It's immoral and it's unethical. Yeah, it is. On to former President Donald J. Trump. Watch this.
Anyone in my position not taking the Fifth Amendment would be a fool, an absolute fool. One statement or answer that is ever so slightly off, just ever so slightly, by accident, by mistake, such as it was a sunny, beautiful day when actually it was slightly overcast, would be met by law enforcement under the advice of my counsel, and for all of the above reasons, I respectfully decline to answer the questions under the rights and privileges afforded to every citizen under the United States Constitution.
What you just watched and or heard, that was newly released footage from last summer of President Trump in a deposition for the financial fraud lawsuit he's embroiled in right now. And he didn't stop there. Check out this headline from yesterday in The Guardian. Trump pleaded the fifth more than 400 times in fraud deposition. Video shows former president repeatedly invoked constitutional rights against self-incrimination in New York. Footage from late last summer. And you know what? One thing the former president was right. Every individual in the United States of America has the right to plead the fifth. He actually told the truth on that one. And of course, he played the victim. Well, no, I won't say he played the victim. He was being Trump. Watch this.
When your family, your company, and all the people in your orbit have become the targets of an unfounded, politically motivated witch hunt, supported by lawyers, prosecutors, and even the fake news media, you really have no choice. We cannot permit a renegade and out-of-control prosecutor to use this investigation as a means of advancing her political career. New York deserves better, and this country deserves better. Being a prosecutor is a very important thing. This is a vindictive and self-serving fishing expedition, the likes of which this country has perhaps never seen before.
Whenever President Donald J. Trump is talking, it's always the likes of which you've never seen before. And if you are not up to speed on the lawsuit brought forth by New York State Attorney General James for $250 million, let's take a look at what the lawsuit is. So here's what she's suing President Trump and his adult children for: lawsuit against them and the organization, persistent and repeated fraud, falsifying business records, conspiracy to falsify business records, issuing false financial statements, conspiracy to falsify financial statements, insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. And that's coming directly from the New York State Attorney General's office. And President Trump, of course, made efforts to combat this lawsuit. Obviously, in November, Trump did sue the Attorney General over what he called a relentless, pernicious, public, and unapologetic crusade against him. Then he dropped the lawsuit this month, a day after a suit against Hillary Clinton was thrown out, and Trump and his lawyers were hit with a near $1 million sanction. Again, this is coming from The Guardian, and it's ridiculous and hilariously, I mean, this is just something. Jackson, I mean, to me, it's just President Trump being President Trump.
And And like the more I see stuff like this, I mean, there's a million things to say, but the more, based on a variety of analysis, we have to keep on going forward. But I just have a feeling that DeSantis is not going to do well against him. I just, because he's too confident in his nonsense. And at the end, and that he already has his base. And while it's stupid, that is stronger than what Ron DeSantis gives off in his demeanor. And if Ron DeSantis can't just blow that away, then he's not going to beat him, which I guess is good for Democrats, like it or not. And it's good for progressives as well. But like, you just watch that and it's just like, he really doesn't care. And you really can't tell him nothing. And unless he's behind bars, I just, this is going to be a crazy election. It really is going to be a crazy election.
Well, it will be. In the statement that you made about he's confident in his nonsense, that speaks volumes. Well,
yeah.
I mean, Jack, I want it to be, all the time we look through the lens of what's good for Republicans, what's good for Democrats. I just wish for once that we would stay on what is good for the American people. Well, 2024, here we come. We're roaring in already for this presidential election. We'll be back after this.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then, by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back to the show. Now, do not forget, the one and only David Sirota will join Cenk on Friday for the conversation. And that conversation begins at 5:30 p.m. ET and 2:30 p.m. PT. You can go to tyt.com/live. You don't want to miss these two firebrands having a conversation. And the watch list, tune in with J.R. Jackson at a new time starting Monday, February the 6th. That's right around the corner, the watch list with J.R. Jackson. New time, tune in, tyt.com/live. Now to your comments. TYT members, Hoover, hey Hoover, between Trump, Biden, and DeSantis, if we're left with those three as the main contenders, might as well change the country's name to the United States of Dystopia. Ooh, you said a word right there, Hoover. Amen to that. And on Twitch, Dude Dragon, hey Dude Dragon, every time DeSantis speaks, I'll call on Black Jesus for Nina. Yes, please call. See, when it's serious, any old Jesus won't do. It must be Black Jesus. I'm loving you, Dude Dragon, for that. You brought a smile to my face with that one, baby. And on YouTube, super chat, Vincent, hey Vincent, Nina's smile is awesome and comforting. Oh, thank you, Vincent, so very much. I appreciate you, baby. And I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in to our show and for your comments and doing what you do, because we could not do what we do without you. We appreciate you here on Unbossed and on the TYT Network. Super Bowl history, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles are going to meet up in the Super Bowl on February the 12th. And there's a reason to celebrate already, no matter which team you're rooting for. Take a look.
Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts facing off. Guys, that is the first time ever there are two starting Black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl.
Oh, I was getting my groove on a little bit to that. The first time ever. Now, y'all know I got to say this. It took too long, but I'm glad that we here. I just had to put that out there, and you love to see it. Former NFL player Shannon Sharpe discusses the importance of this moment. Now, I got to give you a fair warning. This next clip contains that dude, Skip Bayless. We couldn't help it, but here we are. Watch.
The first is always important. Hopefully it's not the last. We've had a lot of not a lot. We've had a few Black quarterbacks start and win the Super Bowl, but never at the same time have we had two Black quarterbacks face off against each other. Just old enough to remember. And I hopefully these guys, as they sit back and reflect on where they are, think about all the Black quarterbacks that didn't get the opportunity that they got.
Good point.
I think that's what's important. These guys get an opportunity that a lot of guys didn't get that opportunity. So it just, Skip, I'm proud. I'm proud for my community. Both of these guys come from the Black community. I'm proud for the National Football League that they finally wised up and realized that these men can do the job.
Yeah, I'm with Shannon on that. Very, very proud. And I love the fact that he pointed out they're not the first ones that had the skill set to be in the Super Bowl going head to head. They are the first ones to have the opportunity, and they definitely stand on the shoulders of the Black men who came before them in that regard. And we need the bold, underline, underscore, exclamation point message in a bottle on a train, but not on Southwest, to what Shannon Sharpe had to say. That last part in particular, as he laid out he weaved that in there quite nicely about the biases against black quarterbacks. And he elaborated a bit more using Doug Williams, the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl way back in 1988, as an example. Watch.
What Doug was able to do, Skip, Doug really, look, he wasn't the first, but you got to do something significant. Him winning the Super Bowl, which is the ultimate prize, showed that a black man had the capabilities, not only physically, but mentally, to withstand the rigors of that position, stand tall when it's all said and done. Once he did that, they were like, well, hold on, wait a minute. They weren't supposed to be able to process information fast enough. They weren't supposed to be able to be mentally strong enough to withstand it. We know physically they can, but what about mentally? Because that is the ultimate mental position.
There it is, and there's still moments like that in his history, but thank God Shannon Sharpe was able to lay that out just the way it is and the way it has been, and it still is. I mean, 2, let's celebrate, but let's see if we get 2 more and 2 more and 2 more after that and after that and after that. Your thoughts, Jackson?
Well, like you pointed out, it's not just the significance that it's the first time, but also, it's been a stereotype for a while that, quarterbacks are white because they have to do the most thinking and things along those lines. And it's also good, too, that at the same time, the black community is making strides outside of sports as well, which is also very important because there's also kind of a stereotype that unless we're entertaining people, there's not that much opportunity.
Yes.
So another good thing about the times that we live in, streaming platforms and things like that are giving us the opportunity to just showcase more what we got. I'm curious. I didn't see this full interview, so I want to know what Skip Bayless was saying because he typically has like a counter argument. I mean, I don't know if he gave one, but him and Shannon clearly don't like each other very much, which is hilarious because they.
Well, hopefully, I hope he didn't give a counter argument, Jackson, because this is the same man. He still got his job after the comments he made. He still has his job, but meanwhile, Kyrie got drugged through the mud. So I'm just, every time I see that dude, it just makes me so angry. So the bias, I mean, there has been and continues to be to this day. Don't let that fool you. 2 black quarterbacks. Yes, we are going to celebrate. We're going to rest in that moment, no doubt. But I don't want you to believe that we have arrived because we have not. No, we have not. So it's worth noting that the bias against black quarterbacks still lingers. When Mike Sandu of the Athletic released his annual NFL quarterback tiers article in which he spoke with 50 NFL coaches and executives to get a sense of how those in the know see the men who play the game's most important position, it was clear that black quarterbacks still face an evaluation gauntlet that white quarterbacks generally do not. This reporting is coming from Touchdown Wire. We're used to the old school opinion in which black quarterbacks were seen as more athletic, white quarterbacks as more cerebral. And Shannon Sharpe had mentioned that in his comments as well. In the article, Doug references Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and how coordinators and scouts across the league view them. Take a look at this. We love Mahomes because of his unorthodox throws, not because of his natural pocket presence, one anonymous source told Sandu. And when that disappears, that is when they lose games. I love the kid, but take his first read away, and what does he do? He runs, he scrambles, he plays street ball. Now compare that with an evaluation of Josh Allen, a white quarterback. Let's go ahead and make this comparison. For Josh Allen of the Bills, a quarterback who shares a lot of the street ball characteristics of Mahomes and Jackson, there appears to be the automatic assurances that he will figure it out. So Josh Allen will figure it out, but the black quarterback cannot. Yeah. And Josh Allen is a better version of Lamar, and I love him as a football player, a defensive coordinator said. I still think he is erratic as a thrower, but he's ascending. So what we're seeing here is the bias against black quarterbacks and how they are perceived as street ballers and not students of the game of football. Why can't they be both? Bringing that street ball flair and be students of the game, which is what makes them extraordinary. Why can't they be both? But no, they got to be one or the other. But hopefully this Super Bowl alone will shift the tide, and black quarterbacks will be given the same respect as their white counterparts. And Jackson, I mean, this is another topic that we could spend a whole show talking about, the biases within sports. It's not only about black players being quarterbacks or not being able to be quarterbacks, not given the opportunity to do so. It's also when it comes to being a pitcher too. You know, any of the so-called thinking positions for a very long time in this country. And as we can see, even today, the bias that black people cannot think, and therefore they cannot hold those positions, still persist, unfortunately.
I mean, how many black head coaches are there in the NFL? So, you know, it goes around to other positions of leadership as well. Black management, you know, higher positions in the executives, all of those things. So definitely.
Sure, no, it really, really does. Well, this is still worth celebrating, you all. We're just pointing out, you know, some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we do celebrate. More importantly, we have not arrived. But congratulations, so excited for this particular moment in Black history and American history. So speaking of Black history, we want to end the show with the one and only Dr. Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of Black history. He got this whole party started, recognizing the importance and the beauty and the magnificence of Black history, and having that determination that all must recognize it, as he envisioned Negro History Week, as it was called, and now Black History Month. Thank you, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. So here is one of the quotes from one of his best books, I think, in my opinion, or most well-known books, let me say that, The Miseducation of the Negro. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson in that book states the following: if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand it. Again, that is an excerpt from The Miseducation of the Negro. Let's put up the book. I encourage each and every one of you to read this book. I reread this book every single year just to be reminded. And Jackson, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he said that.
Yeah, I actually haven't read this. I've read a decent amount of books. I don't have as much time to read as I'd like. I'm always reading articles for work and things, but I definitely need to catch this one. This is one I still haven't read. Should have been read it, but I haven't.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. It's still time to do it. And I'm with you, reading all kinds of articles. Jackson, at one time, right. I'm reading 15 books at a time, just books everywhere, trying to. We got to take advantage of stuff like Audible more. You know, listen to books while we're in the middle of stuff. I definitely need to do that, because I like sitting down and reading, but I just got to read articles, so much, don't always have time. Yeah, well, you gotta make the time to do that. And just the beautiful thing about, Carter G. Woodson and what he was really pressing for, I mean, to really stand up in the 1920s and declare how important Black history is, to create an institute to study it, to really bring to bear the beauty, because for so long, Black people were told that there was nothing beautiful or magnificent about our history. We were not taught separate and apart from American history, everything that we did to make this country what it is today. And that is why Dr. Carter G. Woodson's boldness, because that's what I call it, Jackson. I mean, he was bold enough. He had the audacity to say, hold up, wait a minute. There is so much to the history of Black people, and to be impatient with the fact that it was not more widely understood and widely known. That is what Dr. Carter G. Woodson did. And you know what else? He didn't wait for nobody's permission to critique this nation and to realize that the history of Black folks, the robustness of that history, was not being taught, was not being appreciated. So he took the matter in his own hands like a boss, baby. And that's what we need more people to do, to stand up, even if you standing alone, and declare some stuff. whatsoever things that are beautiful are just, baby, we're gonna think on those things. So big salute, big ups to the one and only Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is the absolute reason why we celebrate Black history to this very day, and we're making history every single day. Big ups to you, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Well, that is our time today here on Unbossed. It was so riveting to have the one and only Action Jackson by our side today. Thank you so much, and happy belated birthday again. And cannot wait to have you in this space, in the place on next week. Now, you know what I want you to do about this time. I do want you to keep the faith, but more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.